Absolute and relative location are two really important concepts when we talk about geography. They can often impact our understanding of how and why humans might live in a certain location or why they might not live in a certain location. So, to start us off, we're going to go over some vocabulary very quickly. So, we've talked about longitude and latitude lines before, but just a quick refresher. Latitude lines are parallel lines that measure the distance north and south of the equator. Remember our phrase to help us remember which ones are which are latitude lays down. And longitude are the lines that measure the distance east or west of the prime meridian, and they start at the North Pole and travel all the way down to the South Pole. These then create a grid on the Earth, which brings us to coordinates. So they are a measure of coordinates are a measure of a location on the Earth's surface expressed in degrees of latitude and longitude. So just like in math class, you guys have your coordinate plane where you have the grid, and then you're going to find your x and y coordinates using the x measure to figure out how far over you go, whether it's to the left or to the right of your zero mark. And then you're also going to have your y coordinate, which is going to determine how far up or down you guys go based off what that unit is worth for that y coordinate. And then you're going to find where those two lines meet. And then that is your coordinate point. We're going to do the same thing in social studies when we talk about coordinates. It's just instead of using an x and y measure, we're going to use a latitude and longitude measure. Next up, we have the Global Positioning System, which is a series of satellites in space that are used to identify specific places on Earth using longitude and latitude. So the Global Positioning Systems, or the GPS, are going to use those coordinates that are created by the latitude and longitude lines to determine exactly where on Earth something is. So instead of being like, it's kind of near 2 and 5, it's at 2 and 5 if we're talking on a coordinate plane. Cardinal directions. These are the four main compass directions. They are north, south, east, and west. You guys should know what these are, but if you forgot, just remember if you have to ever label a compass rose, you need to use our fancy little phrase, never eat soggy waffles. And that goes in the clockwise direction, starting up at the top with the north, then east, south, and west, all the way around our compass rose. Okay. So absolute location. Absolute location is defined as the exact point where a place is located according to its latitude and longitude coordinates. So, like I said earlier, just like in math class when you guys use a coordinate plane, you have those x and y coordinates, and that helps you find out exactly where on the coordinate plane you should be placing your coordinate mark. That's exactly what we're going to do here with our longitude and latitude lines. They create a grid over the Earth's surface, just like you guys see in the picture to the bottom right there. And you can use those grid line marks to figure out exactly where the location is, depending on what you're looking at. So if we were looking at a spot in North America, we would find the latitude line, and then find a longitude line and see where they intersect, and that would give us our measure to get our coordinate. So when do we use these? Well, the most common time we use absolute location is when we're using a GPS for navigation. We've talked in the past how GPS is in our phones and how we and a lot of other grown-ups use them to find directions when we're driving or if we're traveling. And that is really the most common. The GPS in your phone talks to the satellites in space, figures out where the location is, and then the system within your phone will give you directions to that location. It also is used to help create accurate and detailed maps. We've talked about how maps can be distorted because of the way that they are shown based on the projection. We've also talked about how, maps that are done by hand can be accurate or not accurate depending on what kind of measurement system they're using, or if they're, kind of having to make up maybe parts that they don't know, but by conjecture they think that there's another landmass here. Um, but the best way to get the most accurate kind of map and detailed map is by using absolute location to mark out the ends of continents, maybe islands, so on and so forth. It is also really important for weather forecasts, especially when we are talking about severe weather. A few miles difference for weather can be a huge difference in what the weather may look like. So if it's storming Here, 10 miles down the road, it might not be raining yet. And that can be a big impact on if we're trying to get people inside to safety. If there's a tornado or there's a thunderstorm or a hurricane, knowing where the weather is and how fast it is moving is extremely important when you're trying to keep people safe. It is also used for augmented reality. So if you played Pokemon Go, or maybe you did geocaching and you went and found, either Pokemon or small boxes with trinkets in it, using a GPS, you use the absolute location of that Pokemon or of that object to do that. So how do you write out absolute location? The key is, number one, latitude measurement always goes first. It's just like your x coordinate and the xy coordinate. It must always go first. Latitude is measured in degrees, and then there are minutes and seconds to indicate spots beyond the line that you are measuring. So you are going to write out your absolute location in the format below, right here. So it says latitude degrees with a little circle, and then you have minutes, seconds, and then direction, meaning north, south, east, or west, comma, and then you'll have the longitude degrees, minutes, seconds, and then again the direction. So for example, this is a coordinate of a location. I'm going to read it out to you. Tell me if you can think of the location this might be. So we have 28 degrees, 25 minutes, 10.21 seconds north, and then we have negative 81 degrees, 34 minutes, 52.40 seconds west. I'm going to give you a few seconds to kind of get your guess in before I reveal the answer. All right. The answer was Cinderella's castle in Magic Kingdom. So the absolute location of that castle is the coordinate I just read out. That is using Google Earth and the satellite systems that are tied to that to find that location. And you can do this with pretty much any major landmark or any location. You can type it into Google or Google Earth and ask what the absolute location is, and it will help you find it, which is a fun little party trick. I think so. Let's jump into relative location. So absolute location is exactly where a thing is on Earth, whereas relative location is where a place is in relation to other places. So the Target is next to the movie theater, or the mall is down the road from the high school. Those would be considered relative locations because I'm describing the mall or the Target's location in relation to another store or another building it is near. When is relative location used? Most times, giving directions or helping someone understand where something might be if they've never been there before, or giving them a general idea of what to look for if they're driving. I personally prefer to use my GPS when I am traveling and trying to get locations, but I know plenty of times I've asked family members, hey, how do I get to this new store? It said that it's on this road in this place. And they'll say, oh, it is next to XYZ store. And that will give me a general idea of where it is. And if I know how to get to that other store, I can, with relative ease, find the new store because I know its relative location because it is near that already existing store. You can also use it to compare a place with somewhere else. So if a town is near a mountain and you are using that information of, hey, what resources might be available near a mountain, what might not be available near a mountain, and comparing that to a location that is near the ocean, okay, a town that is near the ocean, you can have a general idea of what natural resources are available in both locations, maybe possible ways of travel for the people that live there, and you're able to make comparisons and even maybe make some similarities between the two. And that goes along with that impacts of the surroundings of a place. So if we talk about, again, a town near a mountain, they might not have access to certain resources like the ability to have large pieces of land to grow crops on. Like an area that might be, a town near a plain, because as a flat open space of land, they would have plenty of space in that town to grow crops versus the town near the mountain. So how do you write relative location? So you just describe where a place is located compared to another location. It is best practice when we are talking in geography and we are using a map to find the relative location of something to use cardinal directions when possible. But if you are saying, oh, this town is located near a mountain, that would also be acceptable. But an example I have here for you using the map on the right is Epcot is south of Magic Kingdom, but it is west of Lake Bryan. So Epcot is down in the center in the orange area there. Magic Kingdom, of course, is up in the more pink area to the north. And then Lake Bryan is to the east because Epcot lays west of it, over in that light blue swatch over on the edge of the map. Best practice when you're talking about relative location is to use the cardinal directions to describe where the location you were talking about is compared to what you were comparing it to. We are going to practice using absolute and relative location by giving you locations and asking you to find the absolute and the relative location of them in this coming week. So if you ever get confused, please just come back to this video, check your notes, and of course, reach out for help if you need it.